Shemai, welcome to my wild Welsh garden. So it's New Year, the time for making new plans, which I've done. And so it's time for actually getting out and getting on with stuff. But before I do that, there's just a quick update on the video that I did last week. In my last video, I said that I'd put some fruit out for the birds and that they'd eaten all the apples and left the pear and the banana. But then when I thought about it, I thought, gosh, that's an awful lot of apples for the birds to eat. And I started having visions of sort of armies of rats coming and carrying them away in the night. So I put the trail cam out just to check. And look who I caught on the camera. I put the camera out 2 nights on the run because the first night I thought it was misty. But I think it's condensation on the lens of the camera because it has become quite cold at night. But even so, I think it's pretty clear that it was Mr. Fox that came and ate all the apples. And these are the latest members of the garden family. I loved Ivy so much that I got myself Peter and Paul to keep me company as well. I can't remember which one's which. One's the smiley one, one's the sleeping one. But they're halfway up the garden and they make me smile as well. They're the kind of things you either love or hate, I think. But I think these ones are quite cute. What is that funny, bright, shiny thing in the sky? Yes, the sun's come out. The rain has stopped and the sun's come out. And I've just been desperate to get out and start doing stuff. It's just been too wet. The rain has been just atrocious. So I've come up to the top of the garden and I'm going to start up here, just very gently, because I've not been so well for the past few days. So I'm just going to come out and do a little bit of gentle pruning, pretending to be a large herbivore. So these are the raspberries. There's a row of autumn raspberries and a row of summer raspberries. So I'm going to prune the summer raspberries properly, which is where you take out all last year's canes and just leave this year's. For the autumn raspberries, maybe not so much. I'm just going to maybe cut them back a little bit, just as if a sort of wandering herbivore had come along and had a little munch. And then that buddleia there, I'm going to turn more into a tree really, because there is quite a strong trunk growing up, and it does bring the butterflies in. But it does mean, because it's really very vigorous, I can't get behind the greenhouse to harvest any of the autumn raspberries. So I'm going to sort of cut the other trunks off and just have the one main trunk. It is the most fabulous day. Look at that blue, blue, blue sky. Not quite wall to wall, but pretty much. A bit of a cloud bank over there. So it turned out to be a little bit more than a gentle prune, as I had to get the pruning saw out to the buddleia. But there are the summer raspberries. Now, they are really not doing very well, and I don't understand why. It's Glen Ample, and I grew those for 30 years in Wigan and never had a problem. So I've given them a good talking to. They don't buck their ideas up. They're out. And I shall get somebody else in. And then these are the autumn raspberries, which I've just basically chopped them off if they got in my way. And the reason why I'm treating the autumn raspberries like this is because they are so vigorous. They just grow into this great forest of canes, and I can't get in to harvest them anyway. And when I decided I was going to wild this garden, I thought, well, they want to grow wild, so I'll just let them grow wild. But I have planted another row nearer the path over the other side of the garden. So those are the ones that I'll be harvesting, and these can just do what they like. And I've just piled all the canes that I chopped off just over the other side of the autumn raspberries in a pile, together with last year's canes and what looks like the year before's canes as well. And yeah, so if any creatures want to come and make their homes in there, they can. And here's the buddleia, and so that's growing more as a tall tree and less as a very untidy shrub. And I tried to cut that branch off at the bottom, but I couldn't do it, so I don't know, I just have to stay like that. And then down there is the hedgehog house. I had a hedgehog living in there for the winter, the first winter, but he's not been back since. So, like the RSPB say, build it and they will come. And they might come, but they might go away again. So, but maybe another time, maybe another year. So just a bit of explanation for those of you that don't know the difference between summer fruiting and autumn fruiting raspberries. Summer fruiting raspberries fruit on last year's growth. So that's why at the beginning of the season or during the winter, you cut out all of last season's growth. Cut out all the thin and weedy and short little canes so that the plants put all their energy into the biggest of the canes and produce more fruit. Now, autumn fruiting raspberries fruit on this year's growth. So what you do with those is you cut them completely down to the ground during the winter. Now, if you don't do that, they will go ahead and fruit on last year's growth, just the same as summer raspberries, but they will also fruit on this year's growth as well in the autumn. But what happens is, with time, the canes produce fewer fruit and the canes lose their vigour. So what I've done with my autumn raspberries, by not cutting them down completely, I have pruned them a little bit, but not very much. So they will still produce fruit, but over a longer period. And the canes will gradually, as I say, reduce in vigour. Well, I'm quite happy with that because at the moment they are so vigorous, it's just crazy. And if you think of it from the point of view of wildlife, to have less fruit over a longer period of something like a raspberry is actually better than having a great glut of raspberries all in one go within a week or a fortnight. Because, you know, even if you're a blackbird, there's a limit to the number of raspberries that you can eat, and you can't store them. Us humans, you know, we get the harvest in and then we process it. We make jam and we freeze stuff and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But if you're, from the point of view of the wildlife, it's, I think that it will actually be better not to prune the autumn raspberries. But like I say, I'm only learning, and I've never done this before. You know, I've always religiously pruned my raspberries just exactly as they should be pruned. So this is an experiment, and we'll see how it goes. So that's that corner of the garden done. I probably won't go in there again now until I try and harvest a few raspberries that the birds might leave me. And then this side of the hedge I'm not going to touch this year, so hoping to get some flowers and some fruit from the hawthorn and blackthorn and bird cherry and wild cherry and whatever else is there that I can't remember. And then this is where I'm going to be starting to do some work next. I'm going to take up the path, the access path that I don't need. I'm going to plant my hedge plants, because this is the ideal time of year to be planting trees and shrubs and bushes. But I think that's for another day. I'm just going to enjoy the sunshine and the bird song for a minute. And then I'm going to go in and have my lunch. And I'll probably see you out here again tomorrow, hopefully. This is 2 days later now. Not such a nice day. Absolutely perishing cold, but dry. I came out here yesterday and I've taken some of the membrane up, and I've also started to prune the hedge. And I thought while I was here I'd just give a little bit of explanation about the different sorts of pruning that are involved with different types of shrubs. So the thing about the little bushes is that they actually want to grow into trees, as this one is doing here. This is a blackthorn, and look at those spines. This is my security hedge. This is to stop people from climbing over this little breeze block wall. So what you do with those, I haven't done it with that one because I actually want to grow that into a tree. What I'd already decided a couple of years ago that I would let some of these bushes grow into trees, so that one was earmarked to be allowed to grow. But this next to it is a bird cherry, and you can see that I've chopped the ends off. So that's the sort of height that I want the hedge to be. And then what happens there is that the bush starts producing side shoots and becomes bushier. But the dog rose, the wild rose, is slightly different. It produces these enormous long branches that go up in the air, but it's multi-stemmed, so it sends up new branches each year. And you can see which are the old ones. This one here is an old one, and this one here is a new one. And then what I've been doing is bending them over, and then that makes a nice thick hedge for privacy and also for the wildlife to hide in. Now, conventionally, at this time of year, I would be cutting these old stems out right down at the base and just keeping the new ones and bending those over. Well, I'm going to do the whole bending over thing, and I just started here. I've bent these stems over and I've secured them to this bush with a plastic tie. I don't like using plastic, but when you're trying to tie something like as sort of strong as shrubs for a long period, you have to have something that's pretty robust, really. So that's the reason for that. Okay, so I'm going to bend over the new stems, but I'm not going to cut out the old stems. I'm going to leave them, and then that will make more habitat for the wildlife. This side of the hedge is now finished, I think. I've bent all the roses over, and all the bushes I've cut off to about 5 foot, and I've allowed 2 of the bushes to grow into trees. So there's a blackthorn tree there and a bird cherry tree in the middle now. And this is what it looks like now. I've taken up the membrane, and that's all the compost and weeds that were on the top, so I'll spread that around, and this is where the hedge plants are going to go. And there were some stones lining the path, so I've just made 2 stone piles but with lots of gaps, so lots of homes for creatures. And those are the hedge plants that are waiting, but I think that's for another day because it's getting to the end of the afternoon and it's very, very, very cold. So I'm going to say goodbye until tomorrow. It's day 4 of doing stuff. And it's the most amazing day. It's so bright and clear. Blue, 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 blue sky. Wall to wall blue sky. But amazingly cold. I think it's it's +2, but with a wind chill factor, minus something. I've placed all the new shrubs and little trees. There's a privet and a couple of hazels and a purging buckthorn, which is the larval food plant of the yellow brimstone, and a holly, and I have a couple of willows, and I'm also going to put one of those little oak trees in. And I've just bought myself a beech from the Woodland Trust because I was watching a video last night on YouTube. She was talking about beech and how, of course, although it's deciduous, it doesn't actually lose its leaves. It keeps its leaves all winter. So I can put a beech into the hedge as well to flies. And then that would be that really. I shan't need to go in there because this side of the hedge I'm not going to cut next year. I'm going to cut the other side. So I shall leave all this to the wildlife. Thanks for visiting me in my very, very cold wild Welsh garden. In fact, it's going to get colder next week according to the weather forecast. But what can I say? It's not raining. I'm not sure what's next on the list of the jobs to be done, but whatever it is, weather permitting, I'll be getting on with them. And I hope you can join me. So I'll see you next time. Bye! Hwyl fawr!